Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode If You Could Hide to Cola podcast. My name's Daniel. This is my brother Clive.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, Daniel. We're out of the Doctrine and Covenants now. No, I mean, not actually out of it, but out of the sections. We're in the declarations. We're in the articles of faith. You know, it's sort of a bit back and forth with time frames, but it's all the stuff that's been put at the end here. Well, actually, articles of faith is in the Pearl of Great Price. So it's interesting that we're chucking that in now. But I guess it all flows quite neatly with the Doctrine and Covenants.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've got the quote, Clive, I think. So let's start off with that.
Okay, yeah, I do have the quote. This is from the teachings of Spencer W. Kimball. And he gives a really great story, which I'm not going to read the story, but then he asks himself a question afterwards. I came to anticipate with infinitely great happiness the possibility of meeting my Lord and Savior, our eternal Father. And there began to bear in upon me this great feeling expressed in the song I have sung many times. O grave, where is thy victory? O death, where is thy sting? Somehow, after this, the future, whatever it was, did not look so bleak and nebulous. There settled down over me a comfort and a peace, which, except in a few weak moments, never left me. And, I was thinking about that. I read that last week when we were talking a lot about the spirit world. And I was thinking about it for a long time because when I was on my mission president would say, if Christ came through this door now, what would you actually? The mission president's wife said it because he turned to his wife, and when we went there, and he's like, if Christ came through the door, what would you do now? And he's like, I'd want everyone to meet Christ, and I'd let everyone go first. And she said, I'd push everyone out the way and go run to him myself. And it's just really funny. We all want to meet our Savior, and we all want to be there for him. So is it really a bleak outlook when he does come back, or is it something great?
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for that. Let's start with the official declaration, number 1. And I'll read the heading here, Clive. That might help us start our conversation. Well, at least some thoughts that I've got. So the Bible and the Book of Mormon teach that monogamy is God's standard for marriage unless he declares otherwise. Following a revelation to Joseph Smith, the practice of plural marriage was instituted among church members in the early 1840s. From the 1860s to 1880s, the United States government passed laws to make this religious practice illegal. These laws were eventually upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court after receiving revelation. President Wilford Woodruff issued the following manifesto, which was accepted by the church as authoritative and binding on October the 6th, 1890. This led to the end of the practice of plural marriage in the church. So Wilford Woodruff, let's go back. John Taylor dies. The church is without a formal president for about 20 months when Wilford Woodruff would take the official presidency. And the main reason for that gap is because the leaders of the church, Wilford Woodruff is the president of the Quorum of the 12, so he's the leader of the church anyway, but the brethren are seriously wondering what on earth they're going to do. The mounting pressure from the US government for the church to end plural marriage had been getting slowly, the restrictions had been getting slowly tighter and tighter and tighter, till eventually Wilford Woodruff has a revelation where he says that Christ showed him that the church would be in absolute chaos. It would cease to exist as a body. There's a whole bunch of points that he says that was shown to him. And so then he puts this declaration together, and subsequently this ends the practice of polygamy. Of course, the idea of polygamy haunts the church. I don't know if haunt's the right word, Clive. I'm going to use the word haunt, but haunts the church still to this day. There is many people that continue to practice plural marriage in the church. And while I don't have this as a factual reference, I believe that the last people who practiced plural marriage didn't die out till the 1940s. So people in the church would continue to be a plural marriage, but the church would not have any more. They would not add to it. They would turn the tap off, and they would not grow the number of members who are taking part of this practice.
I think it's, yeah, funny you say that it haunts the church, because it really does. Um, between me and you, we've had many, many, many jobs, and anytime that I mention to anyone that I'm a Latter-day Saint, or easier to say Mormon, Mormon, well, what's a Latter-day Saint, a Mormon? So then, yeah, you're the one with lots of wives, and it's like, well, we practiced polygamy for 30, 40 years, well, legally, like it was 30 odd years, and then we'll talk about later how it wasn't really in the church even when this came out, but 200 years later, that's what people know us as. It's strange, isn't it? Like, okay, but what about everything else we've done? What about this guy that claims to see God and Jesus? What about the people that still have prophets on the earth? These are the things that we really want to be known for, not that religion that could have lots of wives.
Yeah, it's definitely something picked up because it is such a challenging topic. You think about women's rights and historical record that some women felt under pressure, and question marks over what was the reason for this. There is no good solid reason for these things happening. Of course, there's lots of Mormon folk tales, like there was lots more women than there are men. These things that kind of just are made up to make people feel better. The fact is that the Lord brought this back for a period of time.
It's funny you say that, because I remember reading Brigham Young Journal of Discourses, and I found a part where it talked about in there how polygamy was important for growing the church. Like, the church was small. With polygamy, we could have multiple children, and so the church could grow that way. And I remember turning to my companion one day and went, look at this interesting thing that I found. I didn't realize this is what polygamy was about. And I didn't say what it was yet. And I said, could you guess why we did polygamy? And he said, well, if I'm going off what the Book of Mormon says, it's to grow the church. And I went, oh, okay, I must have missed that part. So it's all there. It's all written down. It all makes sense. And it was there for, like you said, it was there for a reason. If that's the true reason, I believe it is. But that's the case.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm happy to declare that I don't know the reason. And not that I don't buy into it, that's not the right terminology, but I genuinely don't know the reason. I don't understand the reason. And, but I'm okay because I've made peace with that and I've got no issues. It's not haunting me. It's not hurting my testimony. But I'm happy to declare that I don't know why. And, I'm happy to, I'm comfortable enough in my own self.
What I think's funny about plural marriage is it's always been exercised. When we talk next year, when we talk about the Old Testament, it's always been in the Old Testament. It was in, for hundreds of years, all throughout the history of the world. We started practicing it. The world decided it was illegal. But I reckon, and, I declare, I don't know how to say it, but I think, give it 10 years, and I reckon it's going to become legal again in the world. And I'm not saying we should definitely, the Lord's going to pick it up again, but I think in the world it's probably going to be legal again. And so there's going to be a period of time there where it was illegal. We stopped doing it. It's going to pick back up again, but obviously it's not necessary for what the Lord has for this church. And so it's not something that the Lord's going to go, okay, it's legal again, let's get back into it, There's all of these caveats and all these reasons behind it. The Lord has a purpose for everything, and the Lord does this thing in all of his times and seasons. So that's why it was stopped, the reason it was stopped.
The reason it stopped, yes, a lot of legal pressure. And of course, this happens. I mean, I don't think it's ever going to come back. I don't think it'll be legal again. Anyway, who knows? A couple of things, Clive, that I just wanted to go through. 2 laws were changed during Brigham Young's life, and 2 laws were changed during John Taylor's presidency. That was the tightening up. Okay, the tightening up from the U.S. Government. In the end, the final act made Mormons not really citizens. They couldn't vote. The government threatened to take away the temple and their other buildings. I believe at one stage the church was even renting the Salt Lake Temple off the government for $1 a week because they weren't allowed to own property. The 12 during John Taylor's life, John Taylor went into hiding. He died while in hiding for the last couple of years of his life. because he was staunch about the idea of polygamy, and he was staunch that the government couldn't take this away. Only God could take this away. So he went into hiding, and he ran the church for a couple of years, actually, in this underground fashion. He would just have a couple of trusted people who would courier to the church what the instructions were. Church members were constantly watched. Properties were seized. So the government were applying a lot of pressure, but the main pressure came during John Taylor's presidency. Brigham Young, of course, had some pressure, but the government really just wanted Brigham Young to not be the self-appointed kind of governor of Utah. They didn't want him there. Whereas John Taylor was more a case of, we are going to change the laws to make sure that you can't practice plural marriage here in the US. So a couple of really interesting points out of this, Clive, that I thought I would talk about. As a church, why wouldn't we have earlier said, okay, well, we obey the laws of the land. We're going to talk about the Articles of Faith in a minute. So why earlier didn't they just say, okay, well, the laws are changing. We need to keep it with the laws, because our Articles of Faith denote that we abide within the laws of the land. And I think this is a challenging point for people to get through, that, well, if the government was telling you it was illegal, why did your leader go underground into hiding to try and keep the practice alive? And I think that is something that people find troubling.
I agree. And that's the thing with the church. There's certain things that people pick out and go, well, this particular thing, that particular thing happened. Joseph Smith did this, Brigham Young did this, John Taylor did this. Like, people do pick out things like that. But, I was looking into the laws, and like you said at the beginning, like 1862 was when it became illegal. And most of the church even stopped it at that time. It was really people outside of America, like Mexico and Canada. They were still practicing polygamy quite heavily. But what you were saying with John Taylor, how he was, very pro polygamy, there was still a lot of church members out there that felt like they had to quietly continue it, which isn't really the case. Yes, we do need to follow the laws of the land. And so I think people went, because there was no clear action of, okay, this is the law now, what should we do? A lot of people did sort of keep it quiet and keep doing it.
Well, what they had to do is that the church was countersuing the government. The church was saying, we find your law unconstitutional. We find your law illegal. So while we're not accepting your law, we're going to take your laws to the Supreme Court. We're going to let the Supreme Court choose if you can inflict your rights on our religion. We want to have religious freedom, therefore we can have plural marriage. If you change a law, the Supreme Court needs to decide who wins, the religious law or the law of the land. And so the church went through this process for a really, really long time. So it's not like because they did continue to preach and they did continue to marry, but it's not like they kind of just said, we don't care about the law. They said, well, while it's going to the Supreme Court, it's not actually law yet. We will continue to practice this because it is part of our doctrine. It is part of our religion.
And I think a lot of people see that alone thing and say, well, your church was really for it, and so you kept fighting the government, even though they'd made this law. Well, yeah. But if you look back, like something I've learned in this history that we've been doing this year is the laws were changed a lot to go against the church members. So who's to say at the time if the church members realized and went, wait, are they just doing this against us? They made it the law that they could kill the Latter-day Saints. They made it the law that they were forced out of our homes. They made this and the other thing the law. What's to say that they're not doing this, making this the law, just to persecute us some more?
Yeah.
So you understand where the saints are coming from, going, well, we need to fight this, instead of going, okay, fine, the law has been made, because there's been so many laws against them.
This is the point that I think is really, really relevant in my understanding of this topic. John Taylor is in the room when Joseph and Hiram are martyred. He will blame, and rightly so, in my opinion, he blames the government for not helping. He blames the state government, the federal government for not stepping in, and he sees his prophet shot falling out of a window right in front of his eyes. He is also shot himself. He would walk around with a cane for his whole life. He would have a bullet lodged behind his knee for his whole life. And so I feel like, and I've never spoke to the guy, so I don't know, but I feel like John Taylor, when he takes up the presidency of the church, he wants the government to just leave him alone and just leave the Mormons alone. They've already done enough damage. They did not help when Joseph was killed right in front of him. Hiram was killed right in front of him. Many people are murdered because they're Mormons. Parley P. Pratt would be murdered as well. That would part of that is to do with the Mount Meadow massacre. Members are being killed and the government's doing nothing about it. And so then when John Taylor is the president of the church, the government is saying, well, we also want to tell you what to do as in your religion. And he's saying, you kicked us out of those places where we tried to be on our own, doing our own thing. Now we've gone all the way to Utah. We're on our own. We're not hurting anyone. We're doing our own thing. Can't you just leave us alone? Why are you always in here meddling with us? We're just trying to do our own bit. And so he particularly goes against the grain of these laws to the point where he goes underground so that he won't be arrested. The church leaders are kind of spied on by the government. He goes underground so that he's not arrested and is really almost sticking it to the man when it comes to these laws that the government are putting into play. So I think the idea that polygamy, the government, or the idea that the church should have just gone, okay, well, the laws change, we need to change as well, is far more complex than just a quick sentence, because you've also got these things that happen to John Taylor and his own perspective, his own point of view with what's happening with the government at the time. So I think it's really, really complicated and nowhere near as easy as just saying laws have changed, you should change your religion, cut it and move on. In the manifesto, Clive, if we turn the page, in here, Wilford Woodruff mentions a few things. He says, we are not teaching polygamy or plural marriage, nor permitting any person to enter into its practice. A couple of pages down in here, he actually says, he mentions that a case is reported, that even after they told the church not to do it anymore, a case is reported. He says, in the Salt Lake in the spring of 1889, but I have not been able to learn who performed the ceremony. Whatever was done in this matter was without my knowledge. In consequence of this alleged occurrence, the endowment house was, by my instruction, taken down without delay. So he removes the record of this happening because he's trying to say, we brought this law in. If people are practicing it, it's not going to be recognized by us. It's not going to be recognized by the church. Is not going to be part of our history. So then he says, inasmuch as laws have been enacted by Congress forbidding plural marriage, which laws have been pronounced constitutional by the courts of last resort. This is the church taking the government to the Supreme Court. I hereby declare my intention to submit to those laws and to use my influence with the members of the church over which I preside to have them do likewise. And so he goes on to says, I publicly declare my advice to Latter-day Saints to refrain from contracting any marriage forbidden by the law of the land. And he ends it here. There's obviously a lot more to it if we read this whole thing out, which we aren't going to do. But Wilford Woodruff now says, this isn't part of me. The Wilford Woodruff papers are being put together at the moment. So I'm sure as time goes on, he was obviously an exceptional record keeper. So I'm guessing we're going to learn a lot more about this case when those Wilford Woodruff papers do eventually come out.
What I really like is the thing that he says right at the beginning here, where the excerpt from the three addresses by the President Wilford Woodruff regarding the manifesto. I really like, because he's probably getting a lot of pressure from Latter-day Saints who are really for this, saying, you're only doing this because the law changed. This isn't divine. And this is great what he says at the beginning. He says, the Lord will never permit me or any other man who stands as president of the church to lead you astray. It is not in the program. So essentially, when I've made a declaration, when I've said something is now the case, I'm not going by the way of the law, and so therefore I have to make a doctrine. The Lord has asked for this for me, and if I'm wrong, the Lord won't allow that. So I think that's really great. He also asks the saints a question. He says, the question is, I lay before you, Latter-day Saints, You have to judge for yourself. And he essentially says, what's the wisest choice of action here? To have the law take away the church, the temples, everything, to arrest the church leaders and apostles and prophets, take them away from their families, or submit to this law, which is a law that the Lord has also declared to be the case. So what do we do? Do we fight the law and lose everything? Or do we accept the law knowing that the Lord has decided as well to be done with plural marriage? It's a simple question for me.
I just realized, Clive, that the heading that I read out at the start won't be in your scriptures.
It is not. I was a little bit confused, yeah.
Because I just quickly grabbed my old version and I'm like, I wonder what Clive is looking at. And yeah, yours isn't in there. Interesting, because these aren't that old, right?
No, well, yours, I think we said 2012 and mine is 2008.
Yeah. All right. Are we done talking about that? Is there anything else? I mean, it is a very, very, it is a very full on topic. It's a very difficult topic. And I was actually out for dinner talking about, obviously all I talk about is church history. No, not really. I was out for dinner with other members and we, they asked how the podcast was going and et cetera, et cetera. And so I said, what are you doing about 132? This is a little while ago now. And so we started having a conversation about it. And, it really struck me that this is such a complicated topic. It's not just about polygamy. It's about how the church went about it, the complications of the newspapers, the media, the church members themselves. The church would stop teaching, specifically would stop teaching about this topic for decades and decades and decades. And I would say probably people in the 1950s, maybe they weren't even really across this because the church was really not teaching it at all. Just trying their hardest to try and cleanse themselves from this name. And of course now it's not, it's not a accepted thing. It's not an acceptable thing. I was in a class, I won't mention where I was, but I was in a different ward. In my calling, I go to different wards. I was in a different ward. And the Sunday school teacher was actually in Sunday school was saying that she has a testimony of polygamy. And that was very full on and went about saying a whole bunch of stuff, which I'm going to term quote unquote crazy. Anyway, I would hate to think if a investigator was in that lesson at the time, but I think that's part of the problem is as well, who's teaching these things, who's talking about them, who's using factual sources, who's using the Gospel Library app, or who's using wives' tales of Mormon history to try and make themselves feel better for a really challenging part of our history.
I think that's also what haunts the church. It might just be not just be the polygamy side of it, but it might also be the fact that we're portrayed like this crazy bunch of people. We're going to get into the declaration, official declaration number 2 now, which talks about that every worthy member should be able to have the priesthood, but that wasn't always the case. And that's what people see. They see the polygamy and they see, oh, God changed his mind in 1978. I think people see us in a certain light because, well, I know this guy who knows this guy who said this about your church. And this guy used to be a member of your church, but he said this. And I think that's something also that we've also got to continue to battle with. The fact that just because somebody's teaching, it doesn't mean they're inspired. We've got to know for ourselves what the Spirit's telling us.
Yeah. 100%. Well said. All right, let's move over to official declaration 2. I almost don't want to move it because I want to do this. I want to do both of these things enough justice that we're not skipping over them and that we are kind of trying to tackle them. So anyway, I guess that's our thoughts. In some things we agree on declaration 1, some things we don't. So I like that. And now let's move to declaration 2. This, of course, is where all worthy members are able to obtain the priesthood. What is that really referring to? People of African heritage. Again, a church kind of folk tale is that everyone who's not white can't get the priesthood. This is everyone who has African heritage. And this is something also that really affected the church and again still does. In Joseph Smith's time, there was a member who was a freed slave, Elijah Abel. He's a guy of African heritage. Like I said, came over to America. He was a slave. He's a freed slave, and he gets the priesthood. He also takes out the endowment. Then during Brigham Young's time is where these people can't take the priesthood. This has also become very challenging for the church. So in September the 30th, 1978, if you're just listening to this or you're reading your scriptures, the church says, yes, we are repealing this law. This is now going to be for everyone.
Can I just ask you something? You keep saying people of African heritage, but there's people of color all over the world. Was it official in the church that it was only people of African heritage? Like, we've got Aboriginal Australians, we've got the Asian countries, if we're saying, Caucasians, there's Asian countries. Were they always allowed to have the priesthood? Was it really just people of African descent?
Yeah, the later on it came through this one drop law, which is also really horrendous. But it's this one drop law where if your history, you have one drop of African blood in your line, then you can't get the priesthood. And now I don't know what happened with Aboriginal members here in Australia. Australia had horrendous racist laws right through this, so I'm really not sure what happened here. I should have checked that out. But people of Polynesian heritage, of course, could have the priesthood. But from the African side, they could not. And there was lots of things thrown around as well, like the curse of Cain, for example, upon these people. So all very challenging. And what happened, Clive, is the church started grappling with a lot of problems. They were finding that people who were called as bishops were self-reporting, hey, I've just realized or just discovered that my, great-great-great-grandfather came over here from X country all those years ago, and I've actually got some of that blood in me. I mean, do I need to be released? And people were saying this, and there's many cases of people who have studied this much better than us, and it's a pretty full-on topic, but there's cases where then the traveling authority says to this person, this particular story here, where it said to this bishop, well, you're doing a great job, and I actually think you're going to stay. We're not revoking anything. You're going to stay as the bishop. And this traveling 70 writes to his reporting person and says, what should I do? I've told him to just keep doing his calling. And so the church is really grappling with these problems. Eventually, what would happen in the 1960s is that a small portion of the Quorum of the 12 would get together, and they would say, this included Hinckley and others. They got together and they said, what are we going to do? We need to discover if this is our actual doctrine or not, because we're not comfortable. So these small band of the Quorum get this man in, and they say to him, and it's your job, please go figure this out if it's doctrine. This is really uncomfortable with us. And he comes back and he says, I cannot find anywhere where this is doctrine. It was built upon this, and this. I don't think this is doctrine in the church. And so then these approach the rest of the Quorum, and they say, this has happened. This isn't doctrine, and we think that we should repeal this. The Quorum, of course, decades earlier, are still tackling with this. Bruce R. McConkie in the 1940s would actually say that that he doesn't think that blacks should get the priesthood. He says this in the 40s, and then later on in the 70s, he would teach at BYU and say, "I was wrong. I can't believe how wrong I was. Of course, they should get the priesthood. Everyone's the same." So there is a kind of line on line, brick by brick of how this went really bad, and then kind of how it was undone as well.
I mean, first of all, I just want to remind everyone who's not watching on YouTube, Daniel, we can't see you doing quotation marks in the air. So, yeah. But, studying the history of the church for this last year, I've come to realize something that I didn't realize, because in my mind, it was always the church started and the Lord directed the church and said, okay, this is how the church is run and this is how it must be run. But it didn't 100% always work like that. Because if I take the most simple example of the word of wisdom, when the church first started, the Lord didn't say, okay, there's a law that you need to follow, no alcohol, no drugs, none of this, none of that, meat and seasoning sparingly and all that. There was none of that. This was something that they discovered for themselves after coming to the Lord and praying. This same doctrine, it's not crazy to think that this was a similar vein. Coming to the Lord, I mean, we know that the world, I mean, it didn't start in the 1800s. The world didn't start in the 1800s, but there was much wickedness around the world and much bigotry and racism around the world. And so it makes sense to me that the Lord didn't come out and go, okay, this is the case for every single person, this case for this, case for this. The Lord actually waited till he was come to and prayed and fasted. And the Lord, again, doesn't come to you when you say a simple prayer. You don't just go to the Lord and say, hey, do I buy this house? Yes or no? Like it takes a lot of work. I remember reading that Spencer W. Kimball paced so much that he wore the carpet out thinking about this, because it takes pondering, it takes prayer, and it takes fasting. It doesn't just take, hey, what do you think about letting everyone have the priesthood? Yeah, awesome. It takes study and it takes everything else as well. And so this is another thing, as well as a lot of things in Doctrine and Covenants, that the Lord just didn't come out and say, okay, this is the case. Yes, we do have the word of wisdom. No, we're not doing polygamy anymore. None of that. It's the Lord needed us to come to him in prayer, in humble prayer, fasting, and a genuine heart, and say, this is what we have found. What's the answer, essentially?
Yeah, that's right. And these people grew up like this. They grew up with the blacks. They grew up with these people being second-class citizen, wouldn't use the same toilet. This is normal America. This is completely normal America. People who are first generation freed slaves, their parents were slaves. These people are growing up in this environment, and it is completely normal that there is a very first and second class society. And so the church changing it, the only thing that I would argue again, that's strong. One thing that I would say that sits a bit ill with me, Clive, is how long it took. It took a long time. 1978, not that long ago. Not that long ago at all, actually. But for all of these brethren and everyone else in the church, the presiding bishops and all these other people, all the 70, they're growing up in a normal America where this is completely normal that these people are not on your level. So, and they also, the other thing that I'll point out is that no authority, whether it be a president of the church or a quorum of the 12, has ever said, hey, we're perfect and we never get anything wrong. In fact, they said quite the opposite. Joseph Smith himself said that if he hadn't seen the first vision, he might not have believed in the traveling missionaries either. We also have Jeffrey R. Holland, who says, if you think that the leaders of the church never make mistakes, you are wrong. And these are just normal men like us. If they weren't making mistakes, they would have been the Christ. And so it's the only thing I would say is the question mark is, why did it take so long? That is an issue. But it's a part of our history that we must know. We should understand some of the things around it. Again, we're not going to really ever understand the actual why. Maybe smarter people than us will be able to give commentary about the time and all of these other things. But it became very, very complicated when people are self-declaring, hey, I've just figured out I've got one drop. What am I doing? Are you going to take the priesthood from me? And this became this became a very big problem that the church then had to deal with. And of course, like I mentioned, the quorum kind of go, hey, is this actual doctrine, or do we need to repeal this? And at the conference, of course it was, and you can go on the church's website now and watch that conference address, actually.
Remember not that long ago, and I'm not comparing this at all, I'm just giving an example of how things change. Not that long ago, elders, you're able to boys are able to go on the missions at 19, girls at 21. And a lot of people had issues with that. Why is that the case? That doesn't really make any sense. So then it was changed. It was 18, boys 18, girls 19. Now it's changed again. 18, everyone 18. Now, in years' time, you can look back and go, the church did wrong there. They seem to have separated. But I look at today and I go, look how much we've come. Look how far we've come. Look at the success that we've come. I don't look back and say, they should have always been 18 for men and women, but the fact that the church has not evolved, not at all evolved to go with the way of the world, but the church has made a decision and gone, this is the decision and this is what we've prayed about and this is what we're doing now. And so you look at the church and you go, wow, look at where we've come. Look at what happened in 1830. Look at what happened in 1838. Look at the growth of the church and the hardships other people went through for the opportunities that we have now, to the point where we're at now. Yes, many people, as I am, are still disappointed church is in 3 hours, but hey, I'll eventually get over it. But, the church has grown to a certain point now where we should really look at where we are and appreciate where we've come from.
Yeah, I think, Clive, I'm going to summarize what you're saying by saying this, that we should expect change. I guess that's what you're saying. The church is full of change. I mean, the church just changed. One thing that came to my mind when you were speaking then is the church just changed garments. The garments are now sleeveless. Like, alls I do now is work out my biceps so I can go to church with a sleeveless shirt on. That's all I'm doing. However, people are saying, oh, well, if the church was true, they wouldn't have changed their garments. If these people knew anything about the history, they would know that the garments used to be to the ground and used to be full sleeves. The church is constantly, it is not doctrine that the garments need to go full sleeve. It is not doctrine that the garments would be up halfway down your bicep. It is not doctrine that the garments now are sleeveless. They'll probably change again. Things do change again. But I agree with what your sentiment is. Some changes are really, really challenging, like this one. This is a really challenging change. We're also judging people from the past based on our current expectations. That is also hard. It's very hard to go, well, my current outlook on the world is this, this, and this. I mean, if we had roles reversed and we went back to these people and we said, the church is really accepting of homosexual people now, and we want them to come to church, and everyone's friends and everything's always good. I'm sure there's people in the church 150 years ago that would have gone, what do you mean? Aren't they mentally ill? What are you doing hanging around with mentally ill people? So I think roles, it's challenging to look in the past based on our current, but it is also very hard not to look at this and go, that is racist. So that's kind of all I want to think about the matter. But it is very complicated. But I do like your sentiment. I like the idea that we should expect change, whether it be small things like 2-hour church. But the church is always trying its hardest to, move into the modern era.
Okay, so should we talk about the Articles of Faith?
Let's. I'm going to quickly.
So the Articles of Faith, very, very simply, you'll get into the details of it, but Joseph Smith was asked, what do you believe? And this is what he came out with. He came with 13 different pieces of, this is what we believe, and they were put in the paper for everyone to see. Basically, that's essentially where the Articles of Faith came from. You'll explain it more, but I want to get into the Articles of Faith once you've given us a bit more of a history of what we're talking about there. And I think there's something fun I want to try with you.
Oh, okay, great. So, well, I guess the only historical thing that I wanted to just leave here was that in 1834, Oliver Cowdery put something very, very similar to the Articles of Faith in the Messenger and Advocate. He actually writes a letter to William W. Phelps, and it's really, really interesting, actually. First, he said, this is part of the letter. First, we believe in God and his son, Jesus Christ. Second, we believe that God, before the world was, ordained certain laws by which to govern his kingdom. and that those laws are irrevocably decreed in heaven and are the same that were before the foundation of the world. Third, mankind transgression of Adam. Fourth, anyway, I'm not going to go through all of them. There's a bunch here. I think there was 8. There was 8, yes. So there's 8 of them, and Oliver Cowdery in 1834 puts these together. This is not dissimilar to the articles of the church or the covenant of the church that we learnt about in when I think we looked at section 1, and we talked about that. The original idea was put together by Oliver Cowdery, and it was kind of built on. The Articles of Faith were not built on what Oliver Cowdery did. This is 8 years later that Joseph Smith would write what we now call the Wentworth Letter. He would write in his version of the First Vision, and he would also say, this is what the church believes in. But interestingly, that Oliver Cowdery in 34 put something not the same, but somewhat similar together. He says, thirdly, baptism for the remission of sins. Fourthly, laying on of hands for the gift of the Holy Ghost. And he has a 5th one, perseverance until the end in all holiness of life. So this idea is already floating around, and Joseph Smith, through Revelation, puts together these tidy 13 articles of what we stand for as a religion.
What I think is great about the Articles of Faith is, right, if someone wants to know more about the church, or if you're talking to a friend about the church, you can, and you don't really know where to start. You don't really know how to explain it. Like, what do you do? Do you talk about the First Vision, talk about the Book of Mormon? You can really just take any one of the Articles of Faith, and you can, this is what we believe. I mean, you could do all 13 if you like, but you can take any one of them and go, well, this is what we believe, and then that'll spark a discussion. Any missionary who's looking for something to teach, or any missionary who's out and about and he's struggling, just remember Articles of Faith. I just got to remember one of the Articles of Faith, and I can build on that. And the great thing about the Articles of Faith is it's not just explaining our beliefs. It doesn't just explain what we believe, but it also explains the whole plan of salvation. So there's so much in there that we can build upon. So what I wanted to do, Daniel, is I wanted to play a little game, right? So I'm going to pick a number, one of the Articles of Faith, and I want you to take 20 to 30 seconds and just find the thing that's unique about our church and just tell me something, not from reading from the Article of Faith, but tell me something that is unique to our church that could spark a conversation about that particular Article of Faith.
Okay.
Good, makes sense. All right, so I'm just going to pick one because I never actually planned ahead.
Okay.
So I'm going to go number 5. Do you have the Articles of Faith?
I do, thank goodness.
Do you memorize
I was going to say, please don't pick number 5. No, I'm joking. So I'm going to teach you about our church out of number 5.
Just pick something unique about our church, and just take a couple of seconds. Just tell me something interesting that you can build upon.
Okay, well, this is a great article, actually, Article of Faith number 5. I would teach you that we believe that God talks to his prophets today, that the heavens aren't closed, because we believe that a man must be called of God, verbally called to, and spoken in people's thoughts and in people's minds, and to people verbally, that he exists and that he calls all people who are in their callings. So God calls people by prophecy, and then someone acting under his authority comes and lays their hands upon those person's head and ordains them to that thing that the Lord has called them to. That is unique. Most all other religions say that heaven is closed. We say heaven is open for business, and God is calling to you, and he is calling to try and get you to live up to the measure of your creation.
So that's perfect, and that's exactly it. It's one verse that you can build upon. Go on. You pick one for me. I'll see how I go.
11. I'm choosing 11 because I read that. When you were talking, I was like, oh, hopefully he chooses 11. You don't know it off by heart? Well, I know you do because you're always doing these with your kids.
So number 11, so this is talking about the privilege of worshiping the Almighty God, for whomever we are. We talked about it just then, that everyone should have the opportunity to have the priesthood. All men should have that privilege. All of men should worship. All men should be able to preach the things that the Lord has ordained to them. You spoke about prophets and the importance of prophets. I'm telling you that the prophet speaks to us all. That the Lord speaks to us all. We can pray to God, and because he knows us personally, we can speak to God and ask him of things. We have those people in authority that speak for a large group of people, but we have authority ourselves. We can go to the Lord and we can speak to the Lord, and we can go to the Lord and not just that we worship the Lord ourselves, but that the Lord knows us. And so for us to go and worship God is for us to know who he is, who we're speaking to, and have that opportunity to be one with him. He is our Father. So if we go and we speak to our Father, we want to speak to him like he's our friend. We want to go and speak to him and hear the words that the message that he has for us. It's a unique thing that God isn't this faceless giant in the sky. And it's unfortunate how many people believe that he is. He is our Father, and he loves us each individually, and he knows us. He knows our thoughts and our actions, and he can help us in a perfect way. That's the fun thing about the Articles of Faith, right? There's so much doctrine to one little bit, and it's such an incredible thing. And, you can pick any piece and you can just go, this is what we believe. This is our understanding. And it's obviously clearly divine, and it's in there for a reason. And it's really, I think we should use it. I feel, me personally, and I can't speak for everyone, I really take this advantage of the Articles of Faith. It's more of something the primary kids can remember. And if you're lucky, you'll still remember it when you're a missionary or, whatever. And, what is it? Like most people memorize 1 to 9 and then sort of fizzle out 10, 11, and 12 and 13. But it's really a key resource for us to look at and to be able to explain what we believe, what we truly believe.
Well, we've had a couple of great little bits and pieces to talk about today. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning into another episode of You Could Hide to Kolob podcast. Catch us on YouTube, subscribe to us there, catch us on Facebook and Instagram, and we'd love to hear from you as we do from time to time, those people with their journey this year, and feel free to share anything with us. We've got modern day scripture next week, Clive. We're looking at the family, the proclamation, and then we've got a Christmas episode, I think, and then we're straight into Pearl of Great Price, and eventually we'll get into Genesis. So a little bit to look forward to, a lot of work to do. But thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.